Welcome to Taekwondo lesson number 25, which is the Purple Belt Skills Training lesson. Please don't forget to review lesson 24, where we did a deep dive into the idea of Taoism. That lecture material would be your knowledge requirements for this 5th GYUP Purple Belt level. So this is section 2, which is the skills training section. Yul-Gok, or Yi-Il, this gentleman, his pen name was Yul-Gok, was a master of Neo-Confucianistic thought. You can review lesson 14 to study more about that. Yul-Gok is the Hyeung that is dedicated to this gentleman's memory. It is a breathing pattern, a dynamic tension and breath exercise, what the Japanese would call a kokyu-ho. The reason breathing is so important is because it's the connection between the mind and the body. In an adrenalized emergent state in combat, your heart rate skyrockets, your respiratory rate skyrockets, fine motor coordination usually goes very bad, and unless you've truly trained and begin to understand this idea of connecting your breath with movement and controlling your breath to slow down your heart rate in an adrenalized state, you can have all sorts of physiologic issues that can occur that reduce your ability to defend yourself. You can develop tunnel breathing. You can get the shakes where you're ineffectively moving your limbs. The tunnel vision, which can cause temporary blindness and or a loss of the visual sight of things in the periphery, is very dangerous. Through breathing exercises and breath methods, you can slow down your heart rate enough to get control of some of your fine motor coordination and some of your movement and actually elicit a fighting response. Hence the reason for the breath exercises. So let's slow Yul-Gok down and take a look at this and discuss it. Yul-Gok as a pattern is a breathing pattern that utilizes a principle called dynamic tension. Japanese styles refer to this as kokyu-ho, or breath power. When we talk about breathing, we really want to try to focus on some concepts of breathing. There's belly breathing, where we're trying to breathe primarily with the abdominal muscles that helps to improve oxygenation. There's also diaphragmatic breathing, wherein we breathe against a pursed lip or closed lip that helps to improve musculoskeletal tone to the diaphragm, which is the main muscle of breathing. And then also there's this idea of a box breath method, which alludes to this through breath exercise. And box breathing is something that you see taught in the military. Some people call it Ranger breathing or Navy SEAL breathing. I've heard the box method, where you breathe in for 4, you hold for 4, you exhale for 4, and then you breathe in for 4. So it's this square or box method. As you can see in Yul-Gok, the exhalation utilizes this idea of both belly breathing, breathing through my tummy, tightening up the abdominal muscles, and diaphragmatic breathing. So I'm doing combination breathing where I'm exhaling out, and you can actually hear the noises that I'm making as I breathe because I'm breathing against what's referred to as a pursed lip. It's almost like trying to whistle, but not quite. So as we go through this pattern, we're really learning about muscle movement. Muscles can move in a concentric fashion, where the muscle actually shortens, or they can move in an eccentric fashion, where the muscle actually lengthens. The tone and the squeezing that we're doing elicits isometric, isotonic, and or isokinetic movements. Isotonic means same tone and same tension. Let's look at some breathing drills from lesson number 24, and let's discuss this with Tatsu Shimabuku. Tatsu Shimabuku was the father of Isshin-ryu Karate-do. This is him doing a dynamic tension pattern, or a breathing hyeung or kata in his language, that is eliciting this idea of dynamic tension. He's squeezing the musculature, and remember that through this idea of isometric, meaning equal force and no joint movement, versus isotonic, meaning same tone and tension throughout movement, and also isokinetic, meaning that with movement at the same speed, You're contracting all of the muscles, both on eccentric and concentric contraction, at the same time. What that does is it causes the muscles to fight one another, so it's almost like you're lifting weights, but without actually lifting any weight. It's also thought that this was something that Bruce Lee had mastered because it sped up his reflex time and his speed. Let's look at some applications, or Sinchon.
I just showed you hosinsul as a movement, this idea of coming out and striking. That motion is really something that you see in Aikido. We do a movement that's very similar to that. In a lot of Tai Chi systems, you'll see that kind of a double motion where we're moving back and forth. It's very classic throughout nearly all martial systems. So if we think about it just from applicability from the Sinchon, if Bruce is just throwing a punch, block, I'm coming to the inside, just that simple movement. I now have both hands that are up. I have this ability certainly to throw an elbow strike, come in with an elbow strike. Lots of controls. If you were going to throw that single punch followed with a secondary punch, I can also now move in that same position. So you can start to see where that's sort of helpful. If he grabs both wrists, strike on top of the nose. That would be yet another application of this technique. If from behind he's trying to get me in a bear hug, the first movement on hosinsul is to bring up, elbows come in, and I strike. Notice that the hands are out here. So now I've moved. I can come in to an elbow lock, which moves the guy. So in this section, we're going to be doing some kickboxing principles. Principle 1 is called broken rhythm and broken timing. Principle 2 is going to be deceptive penetration. Later on at your blue belt level, we introduce the idea of set point control. We'll also introduce the idea of leading centers. All of these are principles that were taught to me by a gentleman named Joe Lewis. Joe was a world champion heavyweight kickboxer. He is the founder of the Joe Lewis fighting system. So I want to give credit where credit is due. These are things that Joe taught me. He had trained with these and had studied with Bruce Lee. I'm sure some of these principles are things that Yip Man had taught Bruce Lee years ago. So student to teacher to student to teacher to students and down to teacher, okay? So on this first movement, what I'm going to do is just a basic back fist. So if Bruce is in a fighting stance posture, and I'm throwing a back fist at Bruce, and what you're going to do is as soon as you see any movement at all, you say, now. That's it. You don't have to block it. You don't have to kick. You don't have to counter. Please don't counter, okay? Just as soon as you see movement, you say now. So I'm here, yeah. Now. 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 Okay. So on that last one, I changed up the rhythm. I went fast and hard, fast and hard, fast and hard, slow and soft. And on the slow and soft, I think you can see that my hand got all the way up and I hovered over his forehead. And I actually waited a pause, maybe half a second before his brain caught up and said, oh shit, his hand's there. And he said now, so I tapped him on the head. That's a classic example of showing you this idea of broken rhythm. All right, it's a kickboxing seminar. And Bill Superfoot Wallace is also someone that I've trained with. He's a great guy. In fact, Bill lives 2 miles or so from here. So if I'm in my fighting stance posture, Bruce is in fighting stance posture, and we're moving just a little bit. I'm here. Let's do that again. Watch. Notice how Bruce isn't moving, and yet I'm gaining half a step on this guy. So if he's watching my footwork, now he's moving rear. Gaining that extra half step is the idea of deceptive penetration. Bill would use that quite effectively whenever he's doing that. So there you go. Your 2 kickboxing lessons at the purple belt level. Deceptive penetration, broken rhythm and timing. So So Bruce is in this fighting stance posture. So what I'm going to do is lead with a jab, then a reverse punch. I pump a knee strike, and then as I come down out of the knee strike, I rotate directly into a spin side kick, and then I follow up with a reverse punch. All right, so I'll do that slowly. So I'm here, 1, 2. As I pump or drive the knee, his natural response would be to do that, to move rear. When I come out of that knee strike, I'm going to rotate, throw my side kick, boom. That's going to drive Bruce to the rear. I step back and follow up with a reverse punch. So that's technique number 1. So now we're on technique number 2. So technique number 2 is a front reverse side kick, a skip side kick, and then a reverse punch. Sometimes we do the knee drive, and I'm going to include that in this technique so that it's exactly the same as the older version, which was the 2007 version. So again, working with Bruce, he's in his fighting stance posture. So I'm going to start, on technique 1, we started with the jab and the cross. On technique number 2, I'm literally going to start with a fake or a pump knee so that I'm here, pump, turn. I've rotated my body position so that when I come out of it, I'm set up so I can drive that side kick. Once I've done that, I want to come out in this set position, which allows me to step behind and side kick again, follow up with my reverse punch. So that's technique number 2. All right, guys, so you saw the classical Taekwondo techniques, which were technique 1 and technique 2. Those haven't changed from the way they were previously in the Western Master System from 2007. Western Masters has been around since 1979. We're one of the older Taekwondo schools. What I'm going to do now is add in a kickboxing technique. So this would be technique 3, but it would be the first of the kickboxing kind of series techniques that we're doing at the purple belt level. So I'm going to start with a jab, jab, cross, and then change my position and change my angle. That's the kickboxing application. Snap kick to cross. Okay? When we take 2 basic techniques, combine them together with an angle change, then it becomes an advanced technique. Let's take a look at the technique done slowly. Bruce in his fighting stance, I'll go very slowly. Jab, jab, cross, change out my stance, kick, punch. When I change my stance and change my angle, that creates more openings and more opportunities for me when I'm fighting. Let's do it one time again. Jab, jab, cross, change, kick, punch. Very simple technique. Change out, cross, kick punch. Technique number 1, kickboxing. So our first 2 techniques were classical Taekwondo techniques from the older version, the 2007 standards. Technique 3 and technique 4 were kickboxing skills, but all 4 techniques are part of your purple belt requirement. At this level, we introduced something called a hack kick. Hack, kick, and or cut kicks are based upon the angle of the kick. A hack kick is a roundhouse kick that's thrown down on the lead leg, and a cut kick is a roundhouse kick that's thrown up on the lead leg. So I'll demonstrate those 2 kicks. Bruce is in his fighting stance posture. So if I'm doing a hack kick, I'm coming down on the leg, pulling through, trying not to hit Bruce hard because this hurts. If I'm doing a cut kick, it's just the opposite, where the round kick is up and into the knee in that fashion. And again, we're going easy because I don't want to damage Bruce's legs. So that's the explanation of the 2 kicks. Now, let's take a look at that hack kick in application. Cut kicks we're going to do at blue belt level. Okay, so let's take a look at it. So I am in this position again. I want to do something to occupy the upstairs space. So it's 1, 2. I'm leaving these out here as my guard and my cover. Notice my body position. He set up, he could counter with that lead leg. But before he does that, I want to bam, drive that leg off, striking low. It's this idea of coming down, and that turns his body position. When I do that kick, I step out and throw the punch. The control, I touched on that. Okay, so that's technique number 2, kickboxing level.
In this section, the hosinsul, or self-defense, was previously recorded on something called Zenpo Waza. You can find that in the older videos. My ukes are Bruce Holbrook and Danny Thompson. Please review that. The other half of this are the Aikido-based skills, which we will review now.
So at orange belt level, we introduced the idea of second control and reverse wrist. So if Bruce grabs, second control is Nikyo. This is that position. Right now we're sort of 50-50, even Steven. So I fix this point here, and the water wants to flow over the rock in that fashion. Once I go from that position, Nikyo, unwind it, now all of a sudden I'm in this position for Kodo, which is the reverse wrist. I want to take the fingers just past this edge of his shoulder, and once I get there, I turn this elbow in, and that takes Bruce down. If I take and now add in the green belt skills, 1, 2, cross fingers, 3, this is called Sunkyo. As I'm coming in, that's that Taekwondo, which is the tip of the sword. I step back, I go into my elbow lock. All right, so that was the orange belt and the green belt exercise. At purple belt level, we're going to introduce elbow locks. There are 2 of them. Well, there's actually many, but the 2 that we're requiring are going to be hiji-shime and hiji-ate. Hiji-shime means elbow lock. Hiji-ate means striking elbow or hitting elbow. All right, if Bruce grabs on high, distraction, I'm on top, cut over. Notice this looks a lot like an old style Korean arm bar. And it is, but Bruce is really strong. If he pushes up while I'm trying to push down, I don't get much purchase out of that. The other thing that's really important is that I maintain chest contact here. My chest is the anvil, my hand is the hammer. If I separate hammer and anvil, and Bruce just simply pops his hand, he can easily get out of that technique. So when he grabs, 1, hammer, anvil, I want this connected to me. The energy is coming in. As this curls in, I'm coming down on his elbow, and now instead of pushing down, I want to push to the rear, and that moves him back and away. Guys at home, that is a really, really powerful elbow lock. You will break someone's arm if you screw around with this, so go very slowly. Listen to your partner. If they say it hurts, please stop. You're locking the olecranon into the humeral bone, which is this bone. The olecranon is a process at the elbow, and the nerve roots run through that olecranon fossa. So when I twist that and lock it, it has nowhere to go other than to break. So be careful with this one. Next is this idea of a hitting elbow. If Bruce just simply throws a slow jab from here, a hitting elbow could be something as simple as I enter at Imi and here. That motion is a hitting elbow. You learned that at green belt level, whether you knew it or not, with that motion from Wong Yo. So a hitting elbow is nothing more than taking this extension and striking here. If Bruce grabs, I distract, I'm going to cut under, I've connected him to me here. Simplest thing is just a bouncer position here, and now I'm just going to put a little bit of stress on the elbow, boom, and that moves his body position. It's a really simple movement. If I'm throwing him, I can come from here and then cut under, and that literally will launch you, but we won't do that. So that's this review of those 2 elbow locks, hiji-shime and hiji-ate.